Hey guys, welcome to our video of the playlist called C# for Beginners. So, almost every real application needs to deal with dates and times somehow. A birthday, an order timestamp, a countdown, a deadline. And honestly, dates seem simple on the surface, but they trip up beginners constantly. Time zones, formatting, calculating differences between two dates. Today we are covering C#'s tool for handling all of this properly, starting with the core type behind almost everything. That's DateTime. Let's start with the absolute basics. What actually is a DateTime and how do we get the current one? DateTime, maybe now equals DateTime.now. This grabs the current date and time right now from your computer's clock and stores it in a variable called now. So let's output this. And let's run this. As you can see, it's showing the current time, 11th of August and 11:22:50 p.m., right? An important distinction worth knowing here is DateTime UTC now equals DateTime dot UTC now. So let's run this. As you can see, it's returning different value because UTC, this gives you the current time in UTC. UTC literal means Universal Coordinated Time rather than your local time zone. This distinction genuinely matters a lot once you start building real applications, especially anything that talks to a server or database, since different users might be in completely different time zones. A really common best practice, honestly, is to store everything in UTC internally and only convert to a local time when actually displaying it to a specific user, right? DateTime.now gives you the local time, and DateTime.UTC now gives you a consistent time zone independent value. Worth knowing the difference exists even this early on, okay? Now, we won't always want right now. Sometimes we need to present specific known date like a birthday or a deadline, right? So for that, DateTime birthday equals new DateTime 2000. Okay. Notice the order here, year first, then month, and then day. This creates May 15th, year 2000. You got that? And let's print that. Birthday. As you can see, it's showing the 15th of May 2012 EM, right? Printing it shows the specific date with a default time of midnight since we didn't specify one, right? So what if we do something like that, maybe with time also? As you can see, if we do need a specific time too, we can add three more numbers, hour, minute, and seconds. This creates August 11th, 2026 at 3:30 p.m. One of the common mistakes worth flagging is some kind of people do something like that. Date time, maybe we say it's wrong, and then new date time 15, 5, and 2000. genuine gotcha worth remembering here is the order is always year, month, and day. Mixing this up is really easy mistake to make, especially since a lot of everyday date formats write day first, right? So be careful. The format is something like that: year, and then month, and then day. Year should be 4 letters, right? Like that, okay? And to summarize this, DateTime.now for the current moment, and new DateTime when you need to represent a specific noun, date, and time. You can add, you can specify the time, and if you don't specify, it gets the default value, which is 12 p.m., right? And okay, so once we have a date time, how do we actually display it the way we want? By default, printing a date time gives us the fairly generic format. Let's take control of that, right? For example, we're gonna create a variable called today. And then here we're gonna write DD, and then year, right? Today.string DD and YYY, this formats it as a month slash day slash 4-digit year. A really common US style format, right? So let's see the output. As you can see, 8th month, 11th day, and year 2026. So let's see the other format also. Console.writeLine today.toString, like that, and swapping the order today first and month second, and gives us the format more common outside the US, right? So you can change whatever type you want, but actually the one of the most standard ones really makes sense, right? So let's see one more example with that. Today.toString and DDDD, and then maybe oops, here M, and then DD, right? And then Y, right? Like that. And this one is genuinely nice for display purpose. Lowercase d's repeated gives us the full day name. Uppercase m's repeated give us the full month name. This prints something like, let's see, as you can see, Tuesday, August 11th and 2026, right? That's very good to remember the formatting style. And there is one thing that's worth mentioning with interpolation. Let me show you. Console.writeLine today is today d then dd, and then y, right? Like that. And remember the format specifiers inside interpolated strings from the last lesson. Exact same idea works here, colon, then format directly inside the curly braces, right? So let's see the output. It would be the same like the previous one. As you can see, today is Tuesday, August 11th and 2026, right? Now, the opposite direction. What if we have a date as text, maybe typed in by a user, and we need to convert it into an actual date time we can work with, right? So let's see the example. For example, string date text maybe equals months and 2026, right here. A date currently just a plain string, and then we're gonna have datetime variable. We parse it date equals datetime dot parse date text console dot writeLine parse date. DateTime.parse date text. This attempts to interpret the strings as a date and gives us back a real datetime object we can actually work with, do math on, format differently compared to dates, right? And there's one problem with parse, and a safer alternative would be something like that. So let me show you. String bad input, for example, somebody wrote not a real data, for example, not a real data, not a real date, yes, and datetime crash it equals datetime dot parse bad input, right? So let's see the output. As you can see, it gives an error. If the text is not actually a valid date, Parse crashes your program entirely, just like we saw in the int.parse way back in the exception handling lessons, remember? So we can do something like that. For example, just close the terminal for now. We can do something like here. We're gonna check first, success maybe, equals datetime dot let's var bad input equal not real date, right? And try parse bad input out datetime result. If success console.writeLine result, else that was not a valid date. Okay, console. Now let's see the output. Oops. As you can see, that was not a valid date. So exactly the same pattern we learned back then, try parse instead. It returns the true or false depending on the whether parsing worked and hands the actual result back through that R parameter. This is geniusly the safer, more professional choice whenever you are parsing anything that comes from the user input, because as you know, users can type whatever they want. Now, let's talk about doing actually math with dates, adding time, subtracting time, figuring out future or past dates. So let me show you the code, some examples, maybe datetime today equals datetime dot now, right? And maybe we can define datetime dot next week today dot add days 7 console dot writeLine next week. As you can see, it's 18th of August 2026, yes? Because today.addDay 7, this gives us back a brand new date time, exactly 7 days ahead. Remember, date time is immutable, just like strings. AddDays does not change today itself, it returns a new value. And we can return to past also, like that. Date time, maybe last month, equals today dot AddMonths -1 console dot writeLine last month. As you can see, it's 11th of July 2026, right? Because AddMonths works the same way with negatives also. And using the negatives, we are just going back to past. And we can work also with years. So let me show you. For example, DateTime, time, next year equals today, AddYears 1, console dot write line next year. Yep, it worked, and it is 11th of August and 2027, right? AddYears, pretty self-explanatory at this point. Same pattern, just for years. Yes. Let's chain all of this together, right? Okay, maybe date, time, future date equals today's dot add days, maybe 10, and then add hours, 3. Console dot write line future date. And since each of these hands back a new date, we can chain them together 10 days and 3 hours from now, all in one line. Let's see the output. As you can see, it's now 22nd of August 2026, but the time, as you can see, 3 hours ahead of the current time. Let's just delete this one and try this. It's now 2:38 a.m. So let's see the output. As you can see, it's 11. So that means adding the hours in one line after the days just works because it's gonna get new value and then adds up onto that, like stacking all of them, right? So AddDays let us move a date forward or backward by knowing amount, yes? But what if we want to find the difference between two dates, like how many days until a deadline? For that, we need a different type entirely. That's called a time span. Let's see some examples with date. DateTime, events, date equals maybe new DateTime 2026 on 12 and 25, right? And then DateTime today equals DateTime dot now, right? Okay. Upcoming event, let's say Christmas, yes, and today's date is just now, today, and there would be time span, time until event equals event date minus just today, right? Time spent, time until event equals event date minus today, right? Subtracting one date time from another does not give you back a date time, it gives you back time span data type value, which represents a duration, a length of time, rather than a specific point in time. So let's see the output. As you can see, it's kind of some kind of hours or some kind of minutes or some kind of hours, seconds, something like that, right? Because it's not just returning the date time, but kind of duration, a length of time that's gonna require to go that time, right? And time span has its own useful properties. Maybe days gives us just the whole number of days in that duration. Let me show you. For example, we can put here days to see exactly, because actually I myself also can't understand what's going on here. So let's see with the days also, and you can see that the word values, the first word value was the meaning of the how many days left. So let's see this one also. as you can see now, oops. As you can see now, this first one means the how many days left. Got that? And then we can put some kind of this kind of value, this one, and then here total hours. If I'm not mistaken, yes, we can calculate total how many total hours left until that date. Oops. Yes. As you can see, it's 3,240, right? While total hours gives us the entire duration converted completely into hours, a genuinely different number than just days, since it accounts for the leftover hours and minutes too, okay? And let's see, creating a time span directly, okay? Time span duration equals new time span, and then we're gonna say 2, 30, and 0. So what does it mean? I'm gonna explain it. Console.writeLine duration here, and you can also create time span using the new time span and directly without subtracting dates here. The first two means 2 hours and 30 minutes and 0 seconds. Genuinely useful for representing things like a meeting length or timers, like, right? And date time represents a specific point in time, while time span represents a duration, a length of time. Subtracting two date times gives you a time span. That relationship is the key thing, remember here, okay? Now let's cover a comparing dates, figuring out which one comes first or whether some things is our due. Let me show kind of practical example. Date time deadline equals new date time okay, and then date time today equals date time dot now, right? A deadline and a today's date. And if today deadline console.writeLine deadline has passed, still time left, right? Here's something genuinely convenient. DateTime supports regular comparison operations like greater than, less than, exactly like numbers. Today, greater than deadline checks if today comes after the deadline, meaning it's already passed, right? And we can do something like that also. Bool is same day equals today dot date equal deadline dot date, and that shows is same day. Oops. Is same day, right? As you can see, still time left and false because they are not the same date. Dot date on a date time strips away the time portion entirely and leaving just the date. This is genuinely important if you want to compare whether the two dates fall on the same day without a specific time of day interfering with that comparison. Okay. And now here's something worth knowing about a newer addition to C#. Sometimes you genuinely don't care about the time at all. Think of a birthday, for example. Nobody's birthday has a meaningful time of day attached to it, carrying around a full day time, right? With an unused time component is honestly a bit wasteful and can even cause subtle bugs. That's exactly date-only solves. So let me show the example. Date-only birthday equals new date-only 2005 and 15. console.writeLine birthday, right? Date only birthday equals new birthday date only, the same year, month, day order as before, but notice there is genuinely no time component here at all. No hidden, no defaulted to midnight, just completely absent. Let me show there. To prove there is no kind of default date time. As you can see, just only date as the type of the value saying date only, right? It's very useful whenever you're using this kind of variable for just storing the only dates without kind of some default times, like yes, like the birthdays or some kind of dates. And for example, we can create date only with today equals date only dot from date time and date time dot now console dot writeLine today. As you can see, it's just kind of scratching the today's dates without any time. And naturally, there's a mirror image type for the opposite situation when you only care about time, not the date at all. Okay, on date only type, we cared only about the date, not the time. So it's kind of opposite version of date only. Think of a store's opening hours, maybe like that. Okay, and we're gonna create our new variable time only. Opening time equals new time only. 9 and 0 console.writeLine opening time, right? Time only opening time equals new time only and 9 and 0 hour and then minute. This represents 9 EM with genuinely no date attached at all. And maybe the time only closing time equals new time only and 17 and then just maybe 30, not 0 console.writeLine closing time also, yes, and closing time is 5:30 p.m. using a 24-hour format for the input, 17 meaning the 5 p.m., right? And let me show other examples. For example, time only, maybe current time equals time only dot from date time dot now. Bool. Let me actually show the example with the previous ones, right? With these ones, just comment the printing part, and we're gonna have time only and current time equals time only dot from date time dot now, and we're gonna have boolean variable is open, whether to check the maybe the shop is opened or not, right? And current time greater or equal to opening time and current time closing time, right? Console.writeLine is open, yes. And just like date time, time only supports comparisons to here, checking whether the current time falls between the opening and closing to determine if the store is currently open. Date only and time only exist specifically so your code can represent exactly what it actually means, a date without a time or a time without a date, rather than just always being forced to carry around a full date time with an unused, potentially misleading piece attached, right? Alright, let's close this out with a realistic example checking whether an event registration is still open. Let me show you the example with closing the, maybe we're gonna have a registration deadline with date time registration deadline equals new date time 2026 maybe, then 9 1, right? And then date time event start equals new date time 2026, and then 9 maybe 15 and maybe 10 and 0 and 0, right? And then date time now equals date time dot now, right? And registration deadline and event and start date and time and right now, right? And here, if now is greater than registration deadline, we're gonna say console dot write line registration is closed. Else time span left time equals registration deadline minus now, and console dot write line registration closes in left time dot days. Okay, and compare now against the deadline. If it's past registration is closed, we're gonna outputting that value, and then otherwise calculating the time span showing exactly how many days are left, right? And after that we're gonna say time span until event start minus now, console dot write line event starts in until event dot days and until event dot hours. And separately we are calculating the full time remaining until the event itself actually starts showing the both days and also hours. And then console dot write line we are showing the event date of event date event start with formatting and dt, and also year, and here at hmtt, right? Okay, and finally we are formatting that event date nicely for display, combining everything we covered today, the full day and month names, and a properly formatted time. So let's see the output, what it's gonna look like. As you can see, registration closed in 20s and event starts in 34 days. There's actually there should be days. Let's run again. Event starts in 34 days and 10 hours. Event date Tuesday, September 15th and 2026 at 10:09 a.m. right? Comparisons, time span, calculations, and formatting all working together, right? This is geniusly close to real code you'd see in anything from an event booking site to a task manager or some kind of real applications. So for today's lesson, your challenge would be creating a date time representing your next birthday this year. Calculate a time span showing how many days away it is, and print a nicely formatted message like your birthday is in on 47 day, maybe on Saturday, September 26 bonus, use date only instead of date time, since a birthday genuinely does not need a time component, right? So today we've covered a date time basics, creating a specific date time values, formatting and parsing dates, date arithmetic with AddDays, and similar methods TimeSpan for representing durations, comparing dates, and finish it with a newer date-only and time-only types for when you only need a one half of the picture at the only time or only date. Dates and times show up in nearly every real application, so this toolbox is genuinely one you'll come back again and again. Next time, we are looking at nullable types, handling situations where a value might genuinely be missing. See you there. Take care.